Good morning as folks start to join us, or afternoon, wherever you are. Hopefully not somewhere where it's the middle of the night, but if so, welcome from there too. We'll give just a couple of seconds as people continue to join. All right, well, as people continue to come in, welcome. Thank you so much for being here. My name is Kyler Blodgett. I'm a state and local policy analyst with People for Bikes, and we're glad that you're here joining us for our August segment in our monthly industry webinar series. This month's conversation will be primarily about the League of American Bicyclists bike-friendly business certification program and a whole host of ways to make your workplace a vehicle for better biking. We have two fantastic panelists that you'll meet in just 1 second. But first, I want to take a minute to remind you that you're welcome to take notes, of course, but we'll send out a recording and copy of the slides to everyone who registered today. We had about 100 registrants, so lots of excitement around this kind of body of knowledge. We'll have 30 minutes together, the first 20 or so as presentation, and the final 5 to 10, depending on where we land for Q&A. So do use that Zoom Q&A feature to write in your questions throughout the webinar to our panelists so you can be ready when we get to that portion. And now I'm excited to introduce first, my colleague Ryan Burkett, who I have the pleasure of working with most days of the week here at People for Bikes. He's our Director of Enterprise Partnerships. And we're joined as well by Amelia Neptune. She's the Director of the Bicycle Friendly America program at the League of American Bicyclists. With that, I will pass it to Amelia to get us started with our content.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Kyler, and thanks to the whole team at People for Bikes for having me today. So like Kyler said, this is a 30-minute webinar. I'll be speaking first about the League and our bicycle-friendly business program, and then I'll pass it off to Ryan to talk about the People for Bikes bike programs. So we're really looking forward to your conversation today, so feel free to send us questions in the chat, and then we'll have time for Q&A at the end. Next slide. So real quick, before I jump into the Bicycle Friendly Business Program, just a quick introduction to the League of American Bicyclists, if you're not familiar with us. We are a national nonprofit bike advocacy organization, membership-based, representing bicyclists all across the country. Next slide. And we've actually been around since 1880, originally founded as the League of American Wheelmen to advocate for the very first paved roads in the country. And today our mission continues in a very similar vein to lead the movement to create a bicycle-friendly America for everyone. Next slide. And we do that through a number of programs that you can learn about on our website, and I'll ask Kyler to put that link in the chat at bikeleague.org. But just to give a quick sense of the kinds of things we do, we host the National Bike Summit every year in March, bringing bike advocates from all across the country to meet with their members of Congress. We do a lot of reports and resources for local bike advocates to help their advocacy work at the local and statewide level. Of course, we do a lot of advocacy at the federal level here in Washington, D.C. We run the Smart Cycling Program, which trains and certifies league cycling instructors to teach bike safety to children and adults, including bicyclists and motorists. We sponsor National Bike Month and Bike to Work Day and give people resources to host those events locally in their own community. And then next slide. The program that I run is the Bicycle Friendly America program. And in this, we evaluate states, communities, businesses, and universities. The Bicycle Friendly State Rankings is a ranking we do every couple of years to rank all 50 states, whether or not they want to be evaluated. And then for communities, businesses, and universities, it's an opt-in program, meaning that those entities apply for the recognition and the designation, and we evaluate them only if they apply. Next slide. Folks decide to apply to the bicycle-friendly community, business, or university programs for a number of reasons. But for us, this is really about two main things: recognition and feedback. So for those who earn the award, we give out awards: bronze, silver, gold, and platinum. And we even created the mysterious diamond category for the platinum communities to keep striving for improvements, because we want to recognize that everyone has room for improvement no matter where they are. And these programs are really designed to meet businesses, communities, and universities wherever they are in the process of becoming bike friendly. So giving them the kudos and the recognition for what they've already done, but also giving them feedback on how they can improve. So not everybody that applies gets an award, but everybody gets feedback from us on how they could move up and improve for bicyclists in their community or at their workplace. We also give them a press packet, a toolkit for their own announcement, and we do a national press release and promote them on our website. So the feedback and the recognition both happen locally and nationally. Next slide. And it's not that getting an award magically makes you bicycle friendly, but all the actions that it takes to earn the bicycle friendly awards really have an impact on things like safety, ridership, health, equity, the environment. There are a number of benefits I probably don't need to tell this audience. You're probably well aware. But we have seen time and time again that the things that communities do to earn the bicycle-friendly community status, the things that businesses do to earn BFB status, all of those in turn create a better environment for people to bike in, and more people are choosing to bike in those places. And that's one of the reasons the CDC has identified the Bicycle-Friendly Community Program as a proven strategy in their Active People, Healthy Nation initiative, which is a national effort to get more Americans to be physically active in their everyday lives. And one of the things we work with them on is a website called data.bikeleague.org, which has a lot of great resources and data sort of showing these connections to the benefits of biking and the ways that places are becoming more bicycle friendly. So I wanted to give a quick shout out to that website if you're curious to learn more. Next slide. And if you're interested in learning more about the various Bicycle Friendly America Awards, we have a great interactive map on our website where you can explore your state and see all the different communities, businesses, and universities that have earned the Bicycle Friendly Award in that state. And you can also see the state's ranking level. There's a report card for every community that has a current BFC award. And to date, we have 496 communities awarded in the BFC program. Almost 1,500 bicycle-friendly businesses in the BFB program, and 222 colleges and universities in the bicycle-friendly university program. So it spans the whole country, all 50 states, and a lot of businesses and universities and communities of all shapes and sizes. Next slide. So I'll obviously be primarily talking about the business program today, but one thing that I really love about this program is that it's a tool to get the business community engaged in bike advocacy and in making communities more bicycle friendly. So we use this, we update this infographic every time we do a new awards announcement of the cities with the most BFBs. And if you look at the next slide, I just give you a quick rundown of how Tampa, Florida got to 70, the most BFBs of any single community in the country. And it was a very concerted effort between the Tampa Downtown Partnership, the local bike advocates, local entrepreneurs who have made a business out of helping businesses, other businesses become bicycle friendly. And each of the communities on this list, as you go down the list, has their own story of what motivated them. For Tampa, it was downtown, getting employees options and alleviating parking demand. For Fort Collins, it was a concerted effort around climate and engaging the business sector in health and climate. St. Pete was health. Fayetteville, there's a really active effort down there about engaging the tourism industry and seeing bikes for all the various benefits that they bring to the community. Next slide. And one thing I also really like to emphasize about the Bicycle Friendly Business Program is that we use the term business very broadly. So we've got churches, elementary schools, police departments, ambulance providers. We've got your typical mom and pop, grocery store, restaurant, bike shops, a whole lot of bike shops, offices, office parks, Fortune 500 headquarters. You name it, there's probably a business like it on the bicycle friendly business list, including community gardens all the way up to major employers with tens of thousands of people. So when you're thinking about businesses in your community that might be eligible, or whether your business might be eligible, and I encourage you to think broadly about all the different places and destinations that people could bike to, and all the different ways that biking could be encouraged in your community through these various employers and destinations. Next slide. So the way we evaluate the businesses in the BFB program is through what we call the 5E criteria. And I'll talk a little bit about this going through a few examples, but the 5Es are engineering, encouragement, education, evaluation and planning, and equity and inclusion. And a really important thing to know is, as I said on the last slide, this is for businesses of all shapes and sizes. And so the 5E framework is designed to be very flexible. There's no one size fits all rubric of exactly what a business or an employer must do to earn the BFB designation, but we use the 5E framework to make sure that they're checking boxes in all the categories and sort of thinking about this holistically. So it's designed to help businesses figure out what makes the most sense for them and to help, again, meet them where they are. Next slide. So some of the examples of things we see under engineering, we look at location and access and advocacy to improve the location of the business. So for some businesses, they realize they're not in a very bikeable part of town and they actually move their business. We've had several BFBs tell us about how they were moving office locations and their #1 priority was finding a place where their employees could easily bike to. Other businesses have gone about it the opposite way, where they knew they couldn't move their location, so they brought the bike facilities to them, through easements, through advocacy, through working really closely with the community to, encourage complete streets and low-stress bike networks all around their business. Even hands-on things like trail maintenance and being out there with the broom, brushing the shoulder of the road. And then, access and location also has a lot to do with things like, are there ramps? Do the doors automatically open for bicyclists? Those sorts of things. Next slide. Under engineering, another really important category, of course, is bike parking. Employees aren't going to bike to work if they're not confident their bike is still going to be waiting for them at the end of the workday. And we provide a lot of great resources for applicants about what bike parking should look like. And I think I put the link that Kyler can share to the APBP bike parking guide that we point to as sort of the gold standard of what good secure bike parking should look like. Next slide. But again, this is not a one size fits all component. There's, every business needs to have bike parking, but what good bike parking looks like for a restaurant versus an office versus an ambulance provider might be really different. So this is, again, one of the areas where what we ask and what we're looking for different businesses will really vary, and what we expect of different types of businesses will vary. Next slide. Under the encouragement section, we look at things like incentives and benefits, these kinds of incentive programs can look like a lot of different things. We've seen companies have health insurance discounts for people who ride their bike to work, or cash bonuses for certain number of cents per mile that you ride, or every day that you ride, or raffles that you get entered in for every day that you ride. But it can also be simpler things like appreciation breakfasts once a quarter for everybody that bikes to work, and having bike to work day celebrations. Next slide. And these are the kinds of sort of culture building pieces that we like to see in businesses, both to foster a positive bike culture and introduce people to biking if they haven't before, but also just to integrate biking into the sort of everyday opportunities for people. So if you have employees who maybe aren't able to bike to work, is there a shared bike available to staff to borrow for their lunch ride? Or are there, after work rides where people are going out together, maybe to coffee, maybe to drinks, or maybe just to ride, and thinking about all the different ways. And again, there's no one size fits all. We've seen a lot of different amazing things like bike and movie nights in the parking lot, bike to work day mornings, Chamber of Commerce bike ride, or a library that invites all their patrons to go on the bike ride with them. Next slide. Under education, we look at things like classes and information that's shared to employees. And this is an area where the league can be a really big help through our Smart Cycling program. I mentioned earlier, people can be trained up to teach bike safety, but we also have just a ton of great resources that you can share, including videos, things online that are all available for free to share, printed materials that you can purchase in English and Spanish, and I think 7 other languages now for our Smart Cycling quick guide. So there's a lot of really great resources there to look into if education is something you're looking to figure out how to improve on. Next slide. And then under evaluation and planning, we look at things like metrics and goals, and you'll hear from Ryan in just a minute about an awesome new tool that People4Bikes has made available for businesses. But I want to remind people that this can be low tech if you're a really small business. We love seeing the paper charts where people are encouraging people to track their rides, or the magnetic board like here at the Giant headquarters. So there's, again, a lot of different ways to accomplish these things. Next slide. And another piece under evaluation and planning is making sure that these things are sort of institutionalized. So thinking about staffing, policies, plans. The bicycle user group at 3M headquarters in the picture here was sort of the grassroots efforts from employees that helped the company become a BFB. And it really helps to make sure that there was a standard process in place for bicyclists on staff to submit, requests or, work with the company to make improvements, so that it became sort of an institutionalized thing, and not just the pet project of, one passionate bicyclist, but really part of the business. Next slide. And then finally, equity and inclusion is a really essential part to think about throughout all the E's. So you'll find equity questions in every other section of the application. And I love this infographic from the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation, not just because it uses bikes, but I think it's a great way to show the difference between equity and equality, where different people face different barriers to bicycling. And a big part of equity is figuring out and understanding and listening to people about what barriers they're facing that's keeping them from biking, and recognizing that the same solution won't work for everyone. So understanding what the barriers are and finding the right solutions for each person who wants to ride to enable that riding is a really important piece for a bicycle-friendly business. Next slide. So all the examples I gave are listed out in our application, and I really want to encourage people to use the application as a learning tool. We have a preview version of it that you can see on the screen here. This is just the PDF version of the online application, but it's really been designed as an educational tool and a menu of options, so you can go through and see all the checkboxes and get ideas of sort of the low-hanging fruit that your business could be doing before you even apply. And we've seen a lot of businesses use the application to make improvements and boost their own status before even hitting submit on their application. And then after they apply, they'll get even more feedback on the things and that they could do and the resources to help them do it. Next slide. So if you want to learn more, here's all the links, and we can put these in the chat as well. But the next deadline to apply to the Bicycle Friendly Business is November 3rd, but you're welcome to get started on your application at any time, and the online applications do carry over. So if you're not ready to apply by November, you could get started anyway, and it will just carry over, or you can apply today and hit submit as soon as you're ready. So next slide. I think with that, I'm handing it over to Ryan.
Thanks, Amelia. I just want to reiterate the Bicycle Friendly Business application is an incredible resource to generate ideas on how your place of employment can be a more friendly place for bikes. One of the line items on the over 100 line item document is bike programming, so a way to incentivize and encourage your staff to ride. And People4Bikes has put together a new bike program that we're walking alongside businesses on their journey to incentivize and encourage their staff to ride more often. And that could be for a multitude of reasons. But the program that we've developed helps identify and remove barriers, encourage their staff to ride, track and reward those activities, and it makes it a ton of fun, which is what riding is all about. So next slide, please. So the bike programs by People4Bikes slide. Next, please. So we have a tool that we use internally to track and record rides called RideSpot. And if you're not familiar with RideSpot, I would encourage you to go just Google RideSpot quick, and you'll get a bunch of videos that you can check out an overview. But this image is the administrator's view. So if you decide to use RideSpot as your tool to conduct bike programming at your place of business, the tool comes with a bunch of different features that can allow you to engage staff on their journey to riding more often. So we use this tool internally to conduct our own bike program, and you can see our president and CEO, Jen Dice, right there riding on August 11th, a little 12-mile jaunt. Better not have been during work hours, but I guess she calls the shot. So it might have been. So if you go up to the top left corner, you can hit create, and it's super simple. It walks you through creating challenges to motivate your staff to want to ride more often. Kyler, next slide, please. And if you hit that create button, this is kind of what it walks you through. It sets you up with a bunch of different buckets of content to fill in, just to make it really streamlined and seamless. So you don't really have to think much about it other than like, what do you want to call your challenge? And what do you want to do for activations? Like, how do you want to motivate people to ride? Next slide, please. So at People4Bikes, as I mentioned, we run this program internally for staff. So first, to step back, we kind of thought about like, what do we want our program internally to accomplish? And we decided our goals at People4Bikes was we want to encourage our staff to ride more often. And then we also want to give back to the bike industry. So we created a program around those goals to activate on those objectives. And the program we came up with is we have a monthly challenge that we run internally that encourages staff to ride their bike 25 times a month. And for each time they get on their bike, they get $4 bonus. So if you do the math on that, over the course of the month, you have the chance to earn $100 if you ride your bike the 25 times. So a big motivator there. But as Amelia mentioned in her presentation, there's a bunch of like non-cash incentive options. So if you don't have the budget to like be paying staff to ride their bikes, there's a bunch of ways that you can motivate them and encourage them to ride and show support for riding activities at your office without having to have a massive budget. So both the league and People4Bikes has options for you. So feel free to reach out if that's something you want to consider. And then the give back to the industry goal that we had internally, we decided that after the month, if you decide to invest your $100 back into the bike industry, and that could be through service, parts, new, used bike, donating to a local advocacy group, then People4Bikes then matches that investment. So you can see how the programming is geared to identify goals and then put a program in place that can activate on those goals. Next slide, please. And then as the rider, the Ride Spot tool has a bunch of unique assets that allow you to make it more fun and engaging to want to ride more often. So on the far left there, you can see the user experience in the app, what it looks like to join and participate in a challenge. On the bottom of that screen capture, you can see a leaderboard, so I can see how my colleagues are doing and engage with them on the ride. And then the screenshot on the right there is my son and I on his first day of school. We took a bike trip to school, and I got paid $4 for that. So pretty awesome. Got paid to ride my son to school. Super fun. So if you haven't checked out RideSpot, I definitely recommend taking a look. And then if you feel like RideSpot could be a cool tool to administer a bike program at your place of employment, please reach out to me, and I'd be happy to walk you through what that looks like and how the tool can be used to accomplish the goals of your organization. Next slide, please. So as I mentioned, you can reach out to me, Kyler, if you could drop in the Calendly link into the chat. But with that link, you can schedule a meeting with me where I can walk you through a demo of how RideSpot could help your organization create a bike program. And then if you decide People4Bikes is the right partner for that, we'd love to walk alongside you on that journey and provide ideas and tips along the way to encourage staff to want to ride more often. And then once you get going on bike programming and you start to believe in the power of the bicycle, I just encourage you to shout it from the rooftops and really tell people that it's like a normal thing to encourage staff to want to ride more often. Because a lot of times I have conversations with people, I'm like, yeah, I got paid to bike my son to school. And they're like, you got paid to what? And I think it's something I'd love to have people like not bat an eye at and have it be a normalized activation of riding your bike at work. So really cool that Amelia joined us today. Thank you so much. Kyler, I'm going to pass it back to you. I know you got some Q&A coming, and I'm excited to chat through that.
Absolutely. Amelia, Ryan, thank you so much for being with us this morning, sharing your expertise. I know you all have questions out there. That was a lot of content, probably questions about how to activate on some of this knowledge. We have one from Aaron in the chat, and I'll let Amelia and Ryan make sure you can see that and answer it for the crowd.
Sure. So I think this one will be for me. Thanks, Erin, for the question. So the question is, how does bike share factor into the bicycle friendly business program? I'm curious how corporate membership and or investment in local bike share could leverage both BFB and support local bike shares that get more people on bikes. And it's a great question. We definitely talk about this in the BFB application under encouragement. So there's a couple different ways we encourage businesses to offer corporate bike share memberships to their employees. So often a lot of public bike share programs do have an employer program that's either allows the employer to offer subsidized or even free annual memberships for employees. And if there's bike share in your community, that's a really great option. We also strongly encourage larger companies to sponsor bike share programs, which is great advertising for you and great for the community to support this, amazing amenity for the community that benefits everyone across the public. And then for businesses that have more unique bike needs internally, or they're in a community that doesn't have bike share, we do encourage businesses to think about, whether their own internal bike fleet is needed or necessary. And we've even seen really awesome things over the last few years of working bikes that are, like e-cargo bikes that, one or two or even a bigger fleet of bikes that are e-cargo bikes used for running errands, doing deliveries or pickup of supplies and materials, getting to meetings and work sites. So thinking about whether, an office bike could really make a big difference in introducing biking to people's lives, sort of like I was talking about earlier, of like somebody can't bike to work, but maybe they really want to ride on their lunch break or get to their meetings, thinking about how to make sure that they have a bike available to them is a really great way employers can help. So both bike share and internal, public and internal bike share programs are things we look at. And then I see another question from Allie about what is the cost to participate as an employer? And I don't know if that's about RideSpot or the BFB program. So Ryan, I'll let you answer let's do both. I'll let you answer for RideSpot. And for BFB, there's a sliding scale of an application fee depending on the size of the business, ranging from $50 to $500 for employers of 1,000 people or up, but smaller businesses of 50 or fewer employees are $50. Nonprofits and government agencies are always that $50 mark, and there's a few middle tier levels as well. And we also offer a lot of different discounts. So minority-owned businesses, women-owned businesses, corporate members of the league all get discounted BFB application fees.
And then a similar answer for PeopleForBikes. The pricing is based on size of organization. However, up to 500 participants, just to give you an idea of cost, up to 500 participants, you're looking at $2,400 for the year. And that comes with the RideSpot software to administer the program. It comes with a marketing toolkit to promote the program with your staff. And then it also comes with the PeopleForBikes staff member who helps you create challenges, track challenges, and then run sentiment analysis at the beginning of the year, quarterly, and then at the end of the year to make sure that the program is activating on your goals as an organization.
Great. Well, no more questions have come in. I assume because it was such a comprehensive presentation. Thank you both, Amelia and Ryan. Just as we get to the end of our time, I want to make sure everyone knows that these will be in the slide deck that we send out later on this afternoon. But please do reach out to Amelia and Ryan. Their email addresses are on the slide. With any questions, and you'll get a reminder as well later in the fall that November 3rd is the application deadline for this year for the League's Bike Friendly Business application. So seeing no more questions, I want to thank you all for spending part of your Wednesday with us and look forward to hopefully seeing you next month.
Thank you.
Thanks so much, Kyler. Thanks, Ryan. And thanks, everyone.